Welcome back. I didn't want you guys to miss me or miss my face, so I decided to do another video to go over today's lesson, which was Chapter 8, Lesson 2. And it was two-step equations. If you notice, we skipped the Lesson 1 of Chapter 8 because all of the bell work that we've completed throughout the year, kind of has us ready for it. But I thought maybe a good review on two-step equations because you definitely need to know this for next year. So I thought we'd go ahead and get started there. Yesterday you were supposed to complete all of the got it problems as you went through, but there are no answers there for you, so I was going to explain how to do that for you today and go over the steps. If you are reading through how to solve the two-step equations, you have to do the inverse operation, which is inverse operation is what? Yeah, it's the opposite. So if I'm adding, I'm really going to subtract. If I'm multiplying, I'm going to divide. If I divide, I multiply. So you just do the opposite. And the different thing when you're solving a two-step equation, you do it in reverse order of the steps to solving equations. So instead of multiplying and dividing first, you add and subtract first. So if we look here at example 1A, you guys should be on page 333 to follow along, have your paper out. When I do reverse operations, I'm going to start with the like terms. So I have a 6x here. I'm going to leave him alone. I'm going to keep him here. So if you need to, you can put a box here saying he's going to stay there for a while. And what's the opposite of adding? It is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 1 from this side, subtract 1 from this side. So what I'm left with is 6x. These canceled each other out. We want to draw that line down there. Equals 24. So now I have 6x equals 24. To get rid of this is multiplication. We are going to divide by 6. Divide by 6, so x equals 4. Just as simple as that. And we've had a lot of practice so far, but I don't want us to forget this important 7th grade standard. So again, what they talked about also in your book is that they had it to where you guys could solve it a vertical method or a horizontal method. I'm kind of do a little bit of both. So it's what's easiest for me. So I just thought I'd show you my version instead of always just following what they have in the book. So here we go again. We have the equal sign. We want to draw that T down the middle. Okay, we're going to leave the 4x here by itself. So now I know I need to get rid of the 5. So here if I am subtracting 5, I'm going to do the inverse, which is adding. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Draw my equal sign. The 5's canceled each other out, so I'm left with 4x equals. And if I have a negative and a positive, what am I going to do? I am going to subtract, right? So 33 minus 5 is 28. But what did I forget to do? Right, you have to bring down that negative sign because it is the greater value. So then to finish solving the problem, I'm going to, this is multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 4. Divide by 4, so x equals a negative 7 because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So your final answer should have been x equals a negative 7. Going on to a couple more of the got-its. You should be now on page 334 because we're at 2A. Notice now our variable is on the right side of the equal sign. That doesn't matter. But also in this equation here, we're introducing you with a fraction. But remember fractions, okay? But it's still, if the fraction is next to the letter, that is still multiplying. So let's start by drawing our line through the equal sign. Okay, so it's the same. We have our variable here and our number without a variable. So we need to move this guy. We want to keep the variable by itself. Okay, so if this is a positive 15, what are we going to get rid of it? You have to get rid of it by doing a subtracting or a negative, the inverse. So I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. When you subtract 15 from both sides, so I would have a negative and a positive. So a 15 minus 8 is 7, so you have, but bring down the negative, so it's a negative 7. So negative 7 equals 1/3 n. So the opposite of, and I can show you the long way, the opposite of multiplying is dividing a fraction. So if I would have to take, the long way would be 1/3 divided by 1/3, because that's what you're doing. You have to divide by 1/3. Well, then it's keep, change, change, okay, and then that makes, 3/3, which is 1, so that cancels each other out. But with all of that, an easier way to do it, so we don't have to do all of that, we just have to recognize, which we do now, is you multiply this side by 3/1, and then I'm going to multiply this side by 3/1. So then 3 times a negative 7 is a negative 21. So negative 21 equals n. And that bypasses all of what we would have to do. But that's the concept, and that is how they got, you're just multiplying by the 3. Remember, the dot is multiplication. We'll do the same thing with 2b, but notice here, our variables on the left are equal sign and our whole numbers all the way over to the right. We're going to draw our line. Make sure you draw that line so you know when you're going across that equal sign, you're doing that magical way to get rid of the numbers. So our variable, we're going to put a box around. We're going to leave it here. So we need to get rid of the 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides, because we want to cross that equal sign, so we had to change that sign. These canceled each other out, and we're just adding 2 positive numbers, so that is 5. We are left with a negative 1/6 x equals 5. If this is a negative 1/6, you must multiply it by a negative 6. You've got to keep the sign with it. So it's going to be a negative 6. Because those canceled each other out, I'm left with x. But then I need to multiply this side by a negative 6. So 5 times negative 6 is a negative 30 to get your final answer. Moving down on that same page, we have example 3. If you did not try it already, please pause the video. Give it a shot yourself on paper or whiteboard, whatever you might have in Notability. Then play the video again to see if you did get it correct. In this example, still, draw your line down that equal sign. We're going to balance each other out. We are going to leave our variable. And in this case, our variable does not have a number in front of it. When it doesn't have a number in front of it, it's assumed that it's just the number 1. To get rid of a negative 15, we do the opposite, which would be adding 15 to both sides. So then I'm left with a negative b equals 59. I cannot leave my answer negative. So because this is like saying it's a negative 1, it would be like dividing by a negative 1, dividing by a negative 1. So b equals a negative 59. So that's how you get rid of the negative sign with the variable. Part B. Draw our line down the center so we know we're balancing the sides. It's a balancing act between equations. This will stay the same. We want our variable to stay. Don't move him out of the way. To get rid of a negative 4 3/10, we're going to add 4 3/10 to both sides. Okay, we have our equal sign. We're left with a negative n. If I have a negative and a positive, you need to do what? Subtract, yep. So 5 minus 3 is 2. 6 minus 4 is 2. And then you must bring down the negative sign because the negative number was greater. Cannot leave a negative with a variable. So it's just like dividing by a negative 1, dividing by a negative 1. A negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, so it's just 2.2, or 2 2/10 equals n. And I like to rewrite it always to have your variable first, n equals 2.2. That would be a good habit to keep in mind, is always putting your variable first after you've solved the problem. With 4a, you'll notice that we're adding, we aren't adding another variable, it's just still one variable. And this is where I'm going to kind of add the horizontal method and vertical method together. What I like to do is circle my like terms, or make sure I say, hey, do something to say that they're together. So I'm going to put a box around those. So now I know my variable is going to stay. Draw your line down that equal sign. I want to get rid of the 4, so this is a positive 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Have my equal sign. Now I'm left on this side with a negative 9c plus 3c equals 54. Now instead of just bringing that down and rewriting it here, I can save a step. Because I've already put a box around it, I can do this math up here. So a negative 9 and a positive 3, a negative and a positive we have to subtract. So 9 minus 3 is 6. Keep the sign of the greater one, so I know that's a negative 6c. So if I wanted just to have that and write it underneath there, I can do that and then just bring down the negative 6c here. Either way is fine. You can either save a step or keep going. So now I need to get rid of the c. So I'm going to divide a negative 6. Divide a negative 6. So I'm left with c equals, and a positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. And 54 divided by 6 is 9. Okay? We'll do the same with 4b. Draw your line. I'm going to do a couple steps at a time. You know, up here in 4a, it was nice and easy. They were together, but if we look at this example, our variables are not together. But you can still solve that problem by, I'm going to just to circle these. Okay, I'm just going to circle those so I know, okay, hey, these two go together. I need to get rid of that negative 2 then, because these two go together, they're going to stay. So a negative 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. When I do that, I get 5.4 equals, these canceled each other out. Both of these are positive, so I know I need just to add. So 4/10 plus 2/10 is just 6/10 m. So I was able to solve that problem in my head, but because I circled them, I knew which ones I needed to keep together. Because sometimes you're going to get more than one variable in an equation, or you might get more than 2 of the same variable. So now I solve it the same way. I divide by 0.6, 54 divided by 0.6, and I get 9 equals m. Okay? Moving on to our last got it problem, which was number 5. Now, one thing I want to focus on number 5 is that it was a story problem. And what you need to know for our lesson coming up tomorrow, you're going to have to start writing the equations and then solving the problem. So it says, Salvatore purchased a computer for $682.20. He paid $105.40 initially and will pay $20.60 per month until the computer is paid off. Okay, we're going to get to problems where, okay, that's all you get. You need to create the equation. So you start with the amount. Okay, he already has $105.40 because that's what he paid. And then it's $20.60 per month. And this is what he needs to end up with. So now we just solve it like normal. So I'm going to box my x so he doesn't leave. I'm going to draw down that teeter-totter line to go back and forth. Subtract $105.40 from each side. So I'm left with $20.60 times the number of months equals $576.80. Again, this is where your calculator comes in handy because I just typed that in my calculator instead of solving it longhand. Either way is fine. To get rid of the $20.60, and divide by $20.60 to both sides. Again, just put this into your calculator. You don't need to do all the hard work. In 7th grade, we get a calculator, so definitely use it. And I get the answer to be 28. 28 is a whole number. There's 28 months. So that is how you would answer that last problem. You were to either go on and work on the guided practice, or you could have done the quick check. If you have, if this lesson didn't help you, go ahead and email me. Ask me any questions that you may have. We can set up a Google Meets where it's a one-on-one tutoring type thing at whatever time might work for you, and we can set up a time after through an email. I hope you guys aren't staying as bored. I hope you guys are understanding these math concepts and still going to get ready for your 8th grade year next year. Have a good day. Talk to you later.